Welcome to the FNO InsureTech podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsureTech. We talk about how technology and innovation are affecting and driving change in the industry. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world. Welcome to another amazing, incredible, unbelievable, stupendous. Did I leave anything out, Lee?
Fantastic
episode of FNO InsureTech. That's right. Your single source, your one and only source. Don't ever listen to another podcast but ours. That was kind of shameless.
For anything?
For anything. That's
for anything.
Right.
All of your news found right here.
That's it. Cancel all your subscriptions.
Everything's done. FNO InsureTech. That's where it's at.
This is it. Once a week, your single source for all information. And well, let me put it this way. Not all information, just anything you need to know.
Anything important is here.
Anything is important is here.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, do we have something important today. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree.
Uh-huh.
I would agree. I think it's a very important podcast today.
But
what are we talking?
Before we get to that, I just want to say one thing. You're going to be very happy with this introduction that we're doing. You want to know why?
Please tell me.
We didn't introduce ourselves.
We didn't. I actually just listened to that one like 3 days ago where I talk about how we say our names too much.
Uh-huh. So we're not going to say our names.
But then it dawned on me that a lot of people listen to these for the first time because, we're seeing a lot of downloads from newer people. So they might not know who we are. So now I kind of regret saying that.
Well, then we're going to go with your regret and we're going to say, I'm Rob Beller, your co-host.
And I'm Lee Boyd, the other guy.
Also known as the cute one and the smart one.
Mm-hmm. We'll let our audience decide.
But that's right. So please look carefully.
Look carefully at our caricatures that make my daughter cry. Yeah. I look like a werewolf on my caricature.
Well, you look like a werewolf in real person.
I think it's funny. Your caricature has actually changed. Like over the first 20 episodes, yours got better. Mine stayed bad.
The more you look at me, the more handsome I get. I think is what it is.
Maybe so. Maybe
or
so.
you just get used to how hideous I look. So
that might be the case. No, I think you look great in it.
Well, enough of this. Let's talk about our episode today.
As we digress.
Our episode today is on one of our favorite topics, and that's the topic of strategy. Why is that, Lee?
Well, strategy makes the world go round. I don't know if you know that, but we have to think about what's going to happen in the future so we can make our decisions today. And strategy allows us to really have a roadmap, because in the words of my friend Rob Beller, and somebody very famous also, if you don't know where you're going, all roads will lead you there. And it's the job of the strategist to really get us to that finish line. But they have to build in pivots. They have to build in detours and changes, because it's not always a straight line. And strategy is so important in our world of insurance, because we're going somewhere that no one's been before. And today we get to talk about that.
We do. We have Marc Fredman, who's the Chief Strategy Officer at CCC, on with us today. And many of you might not have heard of CCC. CCC is one of those way relatively old insurtechs, one of the very first insurtechs.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know CCC, they are a platform for insurance-backed repair, an enormous company, an enormous platform that's enjoyed tremendous success. They're ubiquitous in the insurance repair industry, auto repair industry. And Marc is with us today to talk about strategy and all things CCC.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to talk about their platform. It's so much bigger than I knew. I feel like I've been around the company for years and years, founded first in 1980. I feel like I've been around them forever, but they are so much more involved with all aspects of the life of a claim and repair than I ever knew. So it's a great conversation. Marc is a wonderful guest on today. received a degree in philosophy, I believe.
Right.
So after the podcast, we actually got to visit with him a little bit on that, which blew my mind. I hope to have him back on one day where we can talk philosophy. But today we get to talk about, strategy around insurance claims.
And there were two words that I want everybody out there in our audience to listen for that he uses that really surprised me. One was patterns,
Mm-hmm.
that he looks for patterns. And two is the idea of inevitability.
Yeah.
And I'll just drop those as two interesting points that you should listen for in our episode that we're about to listen to. And so why don't we do that? What do you think about that, Lee?
I think that's a wonderful idea. I think it's a fantastic idea.
So without further ado, here is our episode with Marc Fredman, Chief Strategy Officer at CCC Information Services. Hey, everybody. We are here with our guest today, somebody from the auto side, you might say. That's maybe too much of a shortcut to today's episode. We have on Marc Fredman, who is the SVP of Strategy, Chief Strategy Officer at CCC Information Services. How are you doing, Marc?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome.
Great. Welcome. Where do you join us from today?
I am joining from just outside Chicago in my home office.
Very nice. You're locked in, and you've been in your home office now for a long time, haven't you?
I have, like all of us.
So tell me, does CCC have a plan for coming back to the office that has been announced?
We've been looking at what's the right time to come back. I think like all companies, including companies that you guys talk to, I think everyone's trying to figure out what does the world look like once people are vaccinated and we're kind of back to normal. What does normal look like? I don't think it really goes fully to where we were pre-pandemic. We do think that there's a lot of value in the in-person interactions, especially with customers. So I know a lot of our team is excited to get back to that.
Let's just jump in and talk about CCC, which we're quite familiar with, and many people on the claims side of the business are. But if we could start by having you just share with us what CCC is, what you guys do, and what you do at the company.
Sure. So CCC is the SaaS platform for the P&C insurance economy, which is insurance companies, but also repair facilities, auto manufacturers, lenders, fleets, everyone that has something to do with resolving the critical moment in someone's life following an accident. And we run a 100% cloud-based platform. And so we connect all those different companies, more than 30,000 of them, so that they can come together and do business. And like I said, resolve those events for the betterment of the industry, but also for ultimately those consumers that are involved.
So is CCC an actual estimating platform, or are they putting these parties together to help resolve the estimate and the repair?
So it's really both. I mean, we look at our role as digitizing the insurance economy, and that digitization spans really three areas. The first would be digitizing consumer experiences, so the way that insurers and all those other groups that I mentioned interact with end consumers, policyholders, claimants. The second would be digitizing workflows and decisions. And then the third would be digitizing the connections with the ecosystem trading partners that those companies have. So we do kind of all of that. So we connect insurers to repair facilities for DRP assignments. We connect repair facilities with parts suppliers to buy parts, but we also provide the decision engines for a lot of the most important decisions that all those companies make in their daily operations. So for insurance companies, it might be estimating total loss, bill review for casualty claims, things potentially on the underwriting side. For repair facilities, that would be repair information, repair procedures. For the shops, we are essentially the shop operating system. So we're the lobby check-in screen. When you go to the shop, we do appointment scheduling, payroll accounting, a lot of back office type things as well. So it's kind of all those things together that we try to enable, again, in the spirit of digitization.
So you're a platform fully for the repair industry.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it as, for us, it's we describe it as the insurance economy because there's so much commerce that happens across all these different groups. So just to put it in perspective, there's over $100 billion of transactions that get processed on our platform one way or the other. And that could be insurers paying consumers, insurers paying repair facilities, like I said, repair facilities paying parts suppliers. And we are 100% cloud, which is pretty unusual in this industry, as you guys
Yes.
probably know, especially for a company that's been around like we have and has the number of customers we have. And that's been pretty exciting because it means that we can innovate much faster, or our customers can innovate much faster by working with us than they might be able to otherwise on their own. We've actually first moved to the cloud back in 2003.
Early.
Yeah, and we've been pretty far ahead of people in terms of big technology leaps that were happening in this industry. So we went to the cloud in 2003. We introduced our first machine learning algorithms probably 10 years ago. Things that we've done in terms of mobile, connected car. A lot of that is, that innovation is really part of our DNA. But again, we try to think about how do we make these moments better for everybody that's involved, for ultimately for consumers, but also for all those different companies that use our services.
So you guys, you said it, you've been around for a long time, since maybe the 80s?
1980.
Yeah, as long as I've been in the insurance industry, I've heard of CCC. Tell us a little bit about just your origin story briefly, about how you got from there to here.
The origins of the company, we really had one very specific focus, and that was digitizing the total loss decision that adjusters have to make. So back in the day, if you were a adjuster and you had to value a total loss, you might grab a newspaper, cut out dealer ads, and try to figure out what that car might be worth on a comparable basis. And so CCC invented the process of digitizing that. We went out, and we still have today hundreds of people that go out to actual dealerships, look at real steel, see what those prices are worth, and provide that in a structured data solution so that insurers can make those valuation decisions. And that was the first thing that we did, was really digitizing that specific piece. And over time, what we've done is just digitize more and more of the insurance economy. The next thing that we did after total loss was, at the time, total losses were probably 5% or something of auto claims. Today, they're about 20%. But back then, we said, well, maybe we can help to digitize the repairable process. And so that's how we got into the estimating business. We then looked at how do we digitize the interactions between insurers and repair facilities. So we launched direct repair in 1992. That was the first time that we introduced that. As crazy as that sounds, we still have big insurers that 30 years later almost have not even fully rolled out on DRP. So it just gives you a sense of the evolution of things. But so we launched that in 1992, and then in the sort of mid 2000s, we introduced shop management for the repair facility, and that was to really digitize the workflows for the shop. And this was around internal management and things to make them more efficient. And then in the more recent time frame, we went into the auto injury side of auto claims through a couple acquisitions, first in 2012 and then in 2013. We bought a business that looks at injury causation. So could the physics of an accident have caused that accident? And then we also bought a business that does medical bill review and things to assess medical bills that might be coming in on both the first and third party side. And then we also introduced a parts ordering platform, probably around that time frame, where we can actually allow the repair facilities that we have on our platform to buy parts in real time from the part suppliers that have inventory. So it's essentially the way you buy something in Amazon, add to your cart, you can do that. Back in 2017, we also formally stood up an OEM division because we saw a lot of opportunities to help bridge connections between OEMs and insurers, OEMs and repair facilities. So really the story of us is we keep sort of digitizing more and more of those different transactions and flows that are happening around this economy. And we keep trying to find more of the participants that our customers are trading with to help them to bring them onto the platform and to, again, drive more efficiencies and things like that.
I mean, it's so amazing talking here to the strategy guy. It seems like there was a big strategy involved in this, and you've been there 7 years. I would imagine your thoughts and where this company is going and can go is going to be pretty amazing. You're very sticky in this auto industry. Seems like in all aspects y'all are touching it, which is fascinating to me. Now, what about AI? Doesn't CCC work with AI or machine learning? Isn't that a part of CCC?
It is, yeah. So we think of that as part of digitizing decisions. So we started, like I said, our first machine learning model we introduced probably about 10 years ago. Our first deep learning models probably about 4 years ago or so. And today we have hundreds of AI models in production. That's machine learning and deep learning. We actually announced recently we've got more than 70 insurers live using deep learning solutions that we've put in place. And those include things around identifying damage from a photo, looking at potential injury causation, predicting different repair costs and things like that. But we also have things that we've done on the repair facility side using natural language processing to help to automate communications and texting and things back and forth with shops. One of the things that's been pretty interesting is actually the acceleration, what we've seen in AI. We did announce recently that we hit a 5 million claims threshold using at least one CCC deep learning model. But I thought what was really interesting was in 2020, we had a more than 100% increase in the number of claims using 2 or more of our deep learning solutions. So I think, there's this sense in the industry that AI is interesting and should we be looking at this? And actually, at least on the auto side, this is being done at very large scale today. And I think what most of the real forward-looking people are thinking is, how far can I take it?
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
what can I use to benefit from AI, and how do I go faster?
This isn't something you guys are goofing around with.
Exactly.
Or wondering, how can we apply it in the future? I mean, you're millions of claims into it already.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of things that a few years ago people would have said, hey, imagine a day when, right? Imagine a day when the connected car tells you it's been in a crash. Imagine a day when you can take a picture and the AI predicts the damage. And like you said, we're not just here, we've been here. So it's actually, how do you sort of build on that and start to change operations and also consumer expectations when that starts to become the norm?
Is some of it the applicability of machine learning and whatnot due to the particular nature of auto claims and auto damage, and that there's a uniformity? A 2017 Acura MDX is the same in Sacramento as it is in Chicago, Illinois. I mean, it's only made kind of one way. And does that help in the application, the uniformity of auto? Does it help in the application of machine learning and AI?
Certainly, the make, model, year of a vehicle, there's some consistency there, but the variation in damage, and then in particular the variation in local part prices, local labor rates, insurer specific rules, there's a lot of complexity to that stuff. I think that what's probably helped us in terms of scaling AI is the things that people don't usually think about in terms of AI. So usually when people think about AI, they think of it in terms of training data and then model development. And those are super important, right? We've got a lot of training data. We have over $1 trillion of historical data, billions of images. So we've got a lot of training data. We also have a lot of models, like I said, right? Hundreds of models. We have data scientists that build those things. But I think what people don't necessarily think through is, how do you actually deploy and maintain those algorithms at scale? And that's why our cloud platform has been, I think, for us, a big enabler of that scaling, right? So when an insurance company wants to deploy one of our models, we just integrate it into workflows they're already using without them having to get a systems integrator to come in and change things out. If the models get updated, we update those things. And because we've been in the cloud for many years, uptime, performance, those things have all been tuned, right? So you don't have to wait 20 minutes for one of our AI models to run. It happens in sub-seconds. So I call that the kind of boring but important aspects of innovation. And so I think there's a little bit of this. Obviously, we certainly know vehicles. We've been doing that for a long time. But I think that what's really driven the adoption is really on the platform side, some of those things.
So I have a question for you. I had a dent in my car. Somebody backed into my car and I had it repaired and I took it to a shop not too far from me. It was, they were insured by State Farm, I believe. And State Farm said, go to this shop. And so I did. And I was completely impressed with the experience, primarily on the technology side. Every day, while they had my car, I received a text message from the shop. Of course, it was from a platform. I'm assuming it was yours. And it told me how far along my car is in the repair process. And am I still on schedule to pick it up on whatever the day was that I was promised that it would be ready? So that is something that your platform does, correct? It communicates with the insured directly. Is that right?
It is right. Yeah. So we've got about 25,000 repair facilities in the U.S. use our platform. And to your point, we have a solution that enables that ongoing back and forth texting with the consumer. We send over 50 million electronic messages per year through that platform. And exactly as you described, it's system generated. So as the car is going through the repair workflow, it's giving you those updates, but it's also two-way. So if you text back, we've got semantic processing, natural language processing that can parse out, what's the nature of the question. We've also had to train it. Sometimes curse words can be good or bad, and so sometimes we've had to train it to figure out, because we want to be able to notify the repair facility and the insurance company if there's something they should be taking. If it looks like this consumer is getting agitated.
Yeah.
So we've built a lot of those things in. We've also expanded that solution end of 2019, but it really picked up in 2020. Is we integrated a product that allows insurers to submit their photo-based claims to the repair facility directly. And so all those things are kind of integrated now, in that solution.
Let's talk about 2020 for a minute. That must have been a very interesting year for you. I remember when COVID got started in, say, March of the year, that we started hearing from our customers on the auto side that volume just absolutely disappeared because people stopped driving. They stopped driving to the office. Tell us about what you guys experienced with COVID and the effect that it had on your company.
Yeah, I mean, we really took a lot of pride in what we were able to do for the industry during that time. I think, like you said, first of all, when it happened, I remember there was a Friday and we thought, hey, why don't we see if we can work from home as a test? Yeah. I think probably like a lot of maybe you guys are the same thing and a lot of other companies. And, we didn't come back because it worked. And Monday was pretty clear that we weren't going back into the office. And so we tried to do a lot of different things to support the industry, especially on the repair facility side. So we made some contributions to the Collision Industry Foundation. We stood up a website for the repair facilities or for our customers that gave them all kinds of resources for small business things around like the PPP and some other different resources. And then we did different promotions to drive those social distancing tools that I was describing. So things that would allow you to continue working, do repair estimates through photos and things like that. And we've been working really closely with all of our customers as they sort of work their way back into that, as people come back on the road and things like that. It has been really interesting. And we've published some data on this that Michelle, and the team have been putting together that shows how variable the patterns actually were at a really local level based on the way that different cities and states reacted to COVID. And so a lot of things we've had to do with people around helping them understand what does that mean for their business, how do they project things, where are things going. And then certainly on the insurance side, we had to really help a lot of our insurance customers lean in even more heavily on the digitization side. So I've had We had a number of different insurers tell us that if they had not already been using our mobile tools, and we have almost 100 insurers that use our tools for mobile estimating and things like that, if they had not had those in place when COVID hit, they literally could not have processed their claims because there was nobody in the office to do anything. There were no staff appraisers, And so because of the cloud platform, we were able to make those changes essentially in real time. I mean, we make a system configuration and it basically rearranges where assignments go and those types of things. So it has been interesting. I would say also, it certainly, I think, has challenged some pre-existing ideas from our customers about what their employees and what their customers would be willing to do digitally. I think if you had taken a poll of people and said, hey, I mean, I think about like my mom. I mean, I never imagined my mom buying groceries online. It's just not something I ever imagined. The way that Zoom has become part of our vernacular. I mean, and the way my kids will almost instinctively, like they have to mute and unmute and do all these things with it. And one of them's 5. So I think that has really changed some attitudes. I think people probably wouldn't have thought about a digital total loss experience before COVID.
Right.
We're doing that now, right?
That's my follow-up is what kind of effect for you as the chief strategist, looking at all of this new data, this whole database of information that you probably never imagined that you'd see, how does the world behave in a global pandemic? What kind of effect will it have on the future? How's it affected you as a strategist? There must be new flashes going off in your brain, fireworks going off in your head about new strategic ideas that COVID helped to spawn.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think probably it hit 2 areas. One is it did spark some new ideas, right? Things that, again, how could you take digitization further? But it also, I think, just removed barriers that we may have seen from customers about their willingness to think about things in a different way. I mean, you mentioned my role on the strategy side. I think of my role very simply. My role is the future. That's my job. Think about the future and make sure that our customers are the winners of tomorrow. And, for a long time, I think for somebody who does strategy, in different capacities, you look for patterns. And in particular, I always urge people to look for inevitability, right? It doesn't matter what industry you're in, look for the inevitability. If you look for the inevitability and you align your business to that, you're probably going to be in a good place. And inevitability is usually pretty easy to spot. I mean, when you think about digitization, the rise of mobile, AI, all these things, and I think with the pandemic, I think it just really, like I said, just forced people to say, in a very visceral way, this really is what the world is now, right? And so that's been exciting, I think, being able to talk to customers about what's possible. Like I said, there's really no area now within insurance, and not just auto, but I think all areas, people wouldn't be willing to think about, well, could we use AI to do that? What can we get from an IoT device? How could we streamline this process? How do we really take advantage of all this different data and information to help to make better and faster decisions? So that definitely has been pretty exciting for me.
Well, and speaking about the future, it's not, probably every month we see a new futuristic car coming out. These electronic cars running on batteries that are super smart, that are connected to everything. What is CCC doing to prepare for the rollout of these new connected cars and electric models? Because you have trillions of photos, right, of traditional vehicles. This is a new world that we're entering into. What are you doing to prepare for that?
Right. I mean, you talk about inevitable. You have to look at the future of the changing futures of cars as a major inevitability, right?
100%. I mean, you guys are spot on. I mean, if you really step back from it, what we really do is we help to manage complexity. That's at the heart of what CCC really does, is we provide a platform to manage complexity. And anywhere you look in this industry, complexity is going up. And in fact, it's going up faster probably than ever. Take literally literally the sheer structure of a car. If you look at the number of parts on a vehicle, on average, I think 10, 15 years ago, the sheer number of parts on the car is 30, 35% higher. And then you think about, how do you efficiently and safely repair a vehicle that has a LiDAR system on it, lasers, maybe 10, 15 cameras on it. So one of the things we've noticed in the past few years is this rise of diagnostics. So what we've actually seen a more than 900% increase in the number of vehicles getting a diagnostic scan since 2017. And that's because people, to your point, you want to know, hey, I bought this car that had all this advanced technology. A, was it damaged in the accident? B, if it was it fixed properly before it goes back on the road?
Right.
And again, that's not going away. Take it a step further. What happens when your self-driving car gets in a crash? Who's at fault? Who's at fault?
Right. Absolutely.
Is it you? Is it the sensor maker?
Right.
Is it
what
the
if it's
automaker?
two self-driving cars?
Right. And by the way, take that a step further. What if there are two self-driving cars and one of those people was on the clock for a food delivery app? So does commercial insurance kick in? If there's a deductible, how does that work? So, we look at all that, and you think about the complexity of that for insurers. You think about it for the complexity for the repairers. Think about just repair information. How do you search and navigate all that stuff? How do you take advantage of all that data? I mean, there's 100 million plus lines of code on a modern automobile. So when you do that diagnostic scan, what do I do with this information? How do I build an insurance company for it? So all those are all things that absolutely, like you said, we think about, and so our job is really to manage that complexity for our customers, especially in a world where, and I'm sure you guys see this in all insurance lines, there's a tremendous amount of expertise that leaves this industry every year due to retirement.
Right.
And so when I talk to insurance companies and shops, what increasingly they're doing is they're hiring people for customer service skills, and just frankly, they just don't have the deep knowledge there. So they're hiring those people who don't have as much expertise at the exact moment that complexity is going through the roof. So the only way you can really manage that is really through technology.
Right.
So that is what we try to do.
Right. Is for technology to span that gap that's created by those exiting professionals. We have the same problem on the property side, same exact problem going on. Do you guys work on the property side at all? Do you do any work there?
We don't. Really, historically, we've been really focused on the auto side. Increasingly, what we're doing is we're deploying solutions that are for insurers in particular, that are enterprise solutions that they can use across their business. So for example, things that we've introduced recently, that texting platform that I mentioned on the shop side, we've recently brought that to the insurance side, and they can use that to do text and video and different types of communications with their insureds.
Absolutely.
Not just for auto, really for any use, not even just for claims, could be for policy and things like that. We're also going to be announcing soon that we are going to be rolling out a payments capability on our platform, so that all these companies can pay each other and eliminate the phone calls and checks that are floating around. And again, that's something we're introducing not as an auto-specific product, but as something that insurers can use across their line of business.
So one of the big things that we've been hearing about in the world of investments in the last year or so is the idea of a SPAC. You guys have some involvement with a SPAC. Is that correct? What can you share with us about that?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just for context, so CCC is a privately held company today. We did announce a business combination with a SPAC that was backed by Dragoneer. That's public, and so we're moving forward in that process. We used to be public. So actually from 1996 to 2006, for 10 years, we were a public company. And we thought that we were at a stage in our evolution where it made sense to be public. We were not looking to go the SPAC route. As I said, we've been public before. The private equity partners that we have on the investment side, they've done hundreds of IPOs. But what we saw with Dragoneer was really a kind of an ideal partner for us as we sort of reintroduced ourselves to the public markets. They have a very long-term orientation, and they are really a pure technology investor. They've invested in many of the leading technology companies in the world, and so we were really excited to be able to partner with them again to kind of come back into the public markets. It's an interesting process. There's a lot of SPACs out there, and I kind of joke with some of the investors we've talked to. We're kind of the anti-SPAC. Because a lot of SPACs that you see are companies that didn't exist 2 years ago, and
Right.
they're gonna fly to the moon or whatever 3 years, and we've been around for a while. We got a real business, real customers. We have an 80 net promoter score, which we're very proud of.
Wow.
Very long-term relationships with customers on the insurance side, repair facilities everywhere. So there's been a little bit of why'd you do a SPAC, and it really was for Dragoneer. It wasn't for the vehicle.
I want to get back to the issue of inevitability and working with customers in the insurance industry. You mentioned earlier how carriers can be slow on the uptake when it comes to technology. What are you finding, though? Do you see that changing? What's it like today as a strategist in the P&C world? Is it changing? Are you feeling that because of InsureTech and what's going on with technology and how it's becoming increasingly ubiquitous for carriers to operate, the attitudes and the openness is changing? What's it like for you working with carriers today?
Yeah, I think it's actually changed. I think that change I saw starting probably 5 years ago, but it really has just accelerated in the last few years. And I think it's a combination of probably a few macro trends. One is certainly the one that you mentioned, which is the rise of InsureTech investment. There's been a lot of high-profile IPOs of startup insurers. I think there's a lot of visibility to that, and I think people are obviously taking notice of that. But I think it's also consumer expectations. If you think about it, when you have a great experience in any walk of life that you have, you don't assume that experience is only for that specific type of transaction. You just assume that's the way the world works. I mean, I had something, it was some months ago when I went to order something online, and they told me it was going to take 4 weeks to come to my house. I thought, that's almost impossible.
You thought, what the heck?
It's literally, it's almost impossible. I mean, it's actually gotten to the point when I try to buy something online, I look to see if Amazon sells it. And if they don't, I rationalize for myself why I didn't need that thing in the first place. Because it's just not worth the aggravation of literally doing something as basic as entering my shipping address and billing information, on a website I've never used before. So I think what's happened also is consumer expectations have really changed in a big fundamental way. And I think, everybody, you could think about people in the context of the job that they have, right? You work in insurance, you work in a repair facility, you work anywhere, but they're also consumers in their own life, and they have those experiences. I think people have said, why are we doing it this way? So I think we've been seeing that evolution, that acceleration, I think, the last several years. It really picked up, I think, the last, certainly with COVID, almost because of necessity, right? But I think it was really just an acceleration of a trend that was already there.
Let's get back to connected car. Let's talk some more about that. Just jump in. I mean, you have to spend a lot of your time thinking about it, thinking about the impact that it's going to have on a company like yours. Share with us some thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, so connected car, I think, and IoT in general, which I know is something that hasn't taken off as much on the property side with insurance, but something that people have talked about for a while. It really is a very profound technology change in the industry, and it's really because of the availability of the data that comes off the car. And there's mobile apps and other things that people use. But if you look at that basket in general, it does a couple of things that really insurance hasn't been able to do before. One is the primacy of the data, because you can actually get notified of a crash the second it happens.
Correct.
And then the second thing is just the resolution and the insight that you can get about that event. When you think about, we have some OEMs that we work with that have literally hundreds of data elements off the car. very esoteric things, ambient temperature, not to mention, were the wipers on and things like that. And so as you think about all the things that you can do with that data, it really is transformational, not just in terms of identifying the crash and doing liability and that kind of stuff, but sending that data down to the repair facility to do parts automation, things like that. We've also we launched with Honda last year, the ability for diagnostics data to come directly out of the vehicle, go into our platform, what I was talking about earlier, and use that in the repair process, right?
Wow.
So we see really just incredible applications there. We've processed over 50 billion miles of driving data. So we do things. Historically, what we focused on is we're well known on the claims side, but we also have a lot of things that we're doing on the underwriting side with insurers to use driving data to help to make better pricing decisions, and the like. And as the car park continues to get more connected, that's only going to accelerate, right?
That's really interesting because, we had ZenDrive on. Are you familiar with ZenDrive?
I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, and Arity.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of Allstate. And I mean, what their bread and butter is driving data,
Right?
And gaining driving data, however it is that they can get their hands on it. But you guys have an inside track on driving data.
They
right?
have that and so much more. I mean, it's not just the driving data, but you got to think about what happens after something goes bad. You already, have that built in. I mean, you're just this one-stop shop. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we look at ourselves as, it's kind of an overused term, but really platform. So there are companies, a lot of different companies that on the connected car side or anywhere, they'll have a point solution for something, right? Like we've got a mobile app that collects data, we do this, we do that. We really connect all those things together. So we have driving data that comes into our platform from mobile app companies. We get it from OEMs, we get it from fleets, we get it from black box OBD providers. And then I think, like you said, the really interesting thing that we're able to do is just bring all that stuff together in the entire end to end of the life of that policy and the life of that car. And I think that allows us to do really interesting things on both sides of the network, right? So if you think about for an auto manufacturer, yes, they want to monetize data, but mostly they want to give a great experience to the person that paid $30,000 for their car. Right. And so some of that comes down to they want to make sure they've got a great repair experience, right? And they want to make sure that they get help after an accident. And so we're able to do those types of things. So yeah, it is definitely an exciting place. I mean, I think a lot of people, like you said, may have in this industry may have sort of worked with us in certain capacities. And so we've been doing a lot of things for a long time, but I feel like we're still just getting started.
Well, Marc, it was just wonderful getting to visit with you today. I mean, just learning all about CCC and the giant platform that it is. It's so much more than I actually understood, and I feel like I've gotten a glimpse inside it, and I can't wait to see what the future holds as things move forward.
We can't thank you enough. Great podcast, and thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Marc.
Lee, that was great. I have one word for you.
What's that?
Inevitability.
Inevitability. That's a big word.
Yeah. What did you think about that insight?
I mean, just amazing, really, to think about that company. I really take the whole podcast and I think about just how big that company is and how they had a vision to become the single platform for all aspects of the auto claims process, auto repair process, auto process, to really work hand in hand. And it seems like they've done that. And I couldn't help but think about the property side during that and about how, is there a market for that? Is there a need for a single source, a single platform for all property to be on? It just really got me thinking. But overall, an amazing podcast.
Yeah, and a really smart guy who gets to play in a really fun, playground of setting strategy and thinking about the future of such a dynamic company. And that's at the precipice of so much change with self-driving coming up and autonomous vehicles and connected cars. I mean, it's all talk about a dynamic situation. He's in the middle of it.
Yeah. What a neat job. What a neat job. And it seems like he's really doing a lot for CCC, that they are very fortunate to have him, as we were having him on the podcast today.
Right, right. Well, listen, we thank Marc Fredman for being with us, for taking the time, and we thank you for being with us as you always do. And can't thank you enough for that. And thank you to Alicia and to Al, our dynamic production crew, without whom this podcast wouldn't be possible, even though sometimes they're very mean to Lee and I. Full disclosure.
Not me. They're very nice to me.
Sometimes they're very mean to me.
Well,
And
thank y'all.
regardless, we are very appreciative to them. And
Yes.
so we'll say until next time.
Goodbye, everybody.